Romans chapter 12, verse 17. Paul echoes some of these very exact same thoughts. You know, this is really remarkable in a way because Paul basically says exactly what Jesus said. And you might ask yourself, how did he... Let's see, no, I must... Oh, yeah, 17. Romans 12, 17. You might ask yourself, how did he know? Because Paul was not a follower of Jesus. You know, Paul was not one of the 12 disciples. That sometimes surprises people to find that out. Paul was not one of the 12. In fact, he was a Pharisee. He was one of those who rejected Jesus and persecuted the Christians. It wasn't until after the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus, Paul was out persecuting Christians, that Jesus appeared to him. You know where Paul found out this was from Jesus after the fact. Jesus, see, Paul says, I didn't learn what I'm preaching from men. He says, I got it by revelation of Jesus. So it shouldn't be surprising to us, really, that he's got the same information. But what's surprising is he didn't get it back there on the Sermon on the Mount. He got it after the resurrection. Jesus gave it to him. He says, listen here, Paul, let me tell you about my love and the kind of love that you as Christians should demonstrate. Verse 17 says this, recompense no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth within you, live peaceably with all men. Now I like the fact that he says, if it be possible, comma, as much as lieth within you, comma. Notice he kind of qualifies it a little bit, and he says, if it's possible, and as much as you have the capacity for it, you know. See, the thing of it is, you can make it your purpose to live peaceably with all men, but all men might not make it their purpose to be peaceable with you, you know. You can show God's love, and it might not be returned, but he says, as much as it's possible, as much as you know, he's recognizing, I think Paul is making a little allowance here for human frailty in this. He says, as much as possible, if it be possible, as much as lieth within you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves. Boy, you know, this is kind of hard medicine here, but it's the truth. Avenge not yourselves. In other words, you don't have to fight your own. You don't have to square things up and make things right. But rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. And if he thirst, give him a drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. In other words, don't let evil overcome you, but you overcome evil with good. Now, by the way, in passing, when he says, in so doing you shall heap coals of fire on his head, I have studied this, and I have studied this, and I have read everything that you can find to read about it, and nobody seems to know what that means. I'll just be honest with you. Some people say that it means that by heaping coals of fire in their head that you are creating a situation of conviction. When you love somebody that's being bad to you, you are convicting their conscience. And I can understand that. I'll buy that. Another person said, who is a scholar who had studied the way people lived back in the first century, said that he's possibly referring to the fact that early in the morning when it's cold, somebody would have to go out to the community fire where they kept the fire going all night. And for people to warm their homes, they'd have a lot of hot coals that burned down in the night. And everybody would go get themselves some hot coals off the community fire and take some hot coals back to your house, and they would carry it on their heads like they do the water pots. And so it had a warming influence on the person. And in fact, it was a desirable thing to go and carry the hot coals back because you got warm before anybody else. See, so I don't know. I don't know what that means, but there it is. But let's go back to verse 17. Anton, give me the Message translation. I just like to read the Message on these things. Don't hit back. Discover beauty in everyone. That's good practical advice. Okay, Anton, next one. If you've got it in you, get along with everybody. That's good advice. Don't insist on getting even. That's not for you to do. I'll do the judging, says God. I'll take care of it. Now this is if you would let this sink in, this is very liberating. This liberates you from that duty and that responsibility. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to. People do aggravating things sometimes. I know that you have experience in your life. Every one of us has experience with people who have done dumb things, aggravating things. But take this to heart. Don't insist on getting even. That's not for you. That's not my responsibility to make things even. I'll do the judging, says God. I'll take care of it. Now that is a good thing, but in a way that's kind of a fearful thing, But that is a liberating thing. You can just say, God, they're in your hands. God, you'll just have to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to worry about it. You know, it's amazing what we do. It's amazing how we will take something in our minds and just worry it around and turn it around. And when we can't do a thing about it, just turn it around, think about it from all sides, lay awake in bed at night, turning it around. And when we can't do anything about it, just as though by thinking it through over and over again, it's going to do something. You listen, just give it to God and let Him worry about it. He's able to. He's the judge. He's the boss. He's the one who's got the power. God, you know, I've just released that to you. You take care of that. Isn't that liberating? I think that's very good. Okay, Anton, give me another one. Our scriptures tell us that if you see your enemy hungry, go buy that person lunch, or at the sandwich shop. And if he's thirsty, get him a drink. Your generosity will surprise him with goodness. Now, I think that's good. Your generosity will surprise him. See, they're not people who are being bad don't expect. You know, it's surprising. It's surprising in a God surprising kind of a way. Your generosity will surprise him with goodness. Okay, is there another one? Don't let evil get the best of you. Get the best of evil by doing good. Well, that's good practical advice. Let's go and read some others. You're not getting bored yet, are you? Let's go to John's Gospel, chapter 15. Anton, I'm going back to King James again. It's not as easy as you think to run that computer, is it, Anton? Okay, John 15. But I sure appreciate it. Thank you for doing that, Anton. John 15, verse 9. Listen to some things Jesus said here. I want you to notice how Jesus, again, brings our mind and our thoughts back to the fact that God loves us, and the way we live is a reflection of how God treats us. As the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Listen, as the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Jesus has loved us with the same love that the Father has for Him. Continue ye in my love. That is, continue in my love for you. Verse 10. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in His love. Now this is an interesting verse here, because in reality, you know, let's just be honest. The reality of the situation is the Father's commandments, we have fallen short in various ways, and everybody's different, and everybody's got their own individual life. But we fall short of the Father's commandments. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with the Father's commandments. We fall short. But notice what Jesus said. We relate to God through Christ. Does that make sense? He's our mediator. And He says, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments. You know, the only person who's ever done it perfectly is Jesus. He's the only one who's ever perfectly fulfilled everything that the Father requires. But He says here, you keep my commandments, I kept the Father's commandments, and I abide in His love. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. Now, in case you want to know, in case you're asking yourself, well, when He makes a distinction between His commandments and the Father's commandments, what are His commandments, or what is it? Verse 12, He tells us, now this is my commandment. Are you ready? That you love one another, even as I have loved you. Now, you notice that He puts this issue of love on a very high position, a very high priority. He says, this is my commandment. In other words, I kept the Father's commandments and abide in His love. So what I want you to do is, you keep my commandment and abide in my love. And here's what it is. This is my commandment, that you love one another, even as I have loved you. Or we can say it this way, in the same way that I loved you. Does that make sense? This is my commandment, that you love one another, even as, or just like I loved you. Now this is an interesting thing, because what He's saying is, I've loved you. And really the reality is, He loves us first. And He's saying, just like I love you, you turn around and show that love to others. In other words, He's taking the initiative, and He loves us first.